like we are now live. I will give Katie, would you like hosting back?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And then are you leaving us, Aaron?
I am.
Okay, thanks for
Have a good day, everyone. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Bye.
Okay, Tom, I will hand it over to you to call the meeting to order.
All right, I'll call the meeting to order and I'll hand it right back to you for the land acknowledgement.
Sounds good. I'd like to, before we begin, I want to acknowledge that the land that we're on in the Essex region is the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of the First Nations, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi. We respect the longstanding relationships with First Peoples in this place. And in the spirit of a teaching that I heard from an Indigenous educator, I like to open meetings with a statement of gratitude and a statement of hope. So I am grateful that we get to be together in this space, even though it is very strange. I'm grateful that the technology exists, that we can do this. And I'm hopeful that we have a good meeting and look forward to sharing with you the progress that we've made.
Thank you, Katie.
You're welcome.
And so with that, I'd like to welcome you all to our March meeting of the Source Protection Committee. Got three things I want to mention to you. Last month, we had a chair's quarterly meeting that looked much like this. All the SBAs made presentations about what's going on in their areas. It's kind of a great review, and as soon as they can get me back on SharePoint, I'll download the slides from that and send them out to you so that you can review what's going on across the province and what they're doing all the way up to Thunder Bay. The guy in Thunder Bay always says, "Thank me for the water I'm sending down to you guys." So anyway, I'll get that out to you when I get the slide deck so that you can see it. Got interesting stuff in there. And it's amazing how different the areas are from well, not so amazing, I guess, if you know Ontario, but it's interesting how different issues rise up in different places because of the geography mostly. The second thing was I'd like to bring your attention to some interesting activity on the blue-green algae front. There's a couple of things I've seen in the Windsor Star over the last couple of months. Katie knows something about some of these because I asked her about it and she said, "Oh yeah, that's a grant." Anyway, the University of Windsor is participating in a funded study, surprisingly enough. And what that study will accomplish is data collection in the watersheds here in the lakes, basically not in the watersheds, but in the lakes, and data collection, and it will provide money for water monitoring equipment that will be set out in lakes full time. And that's kind of interesting because it's not just the University of Windsor. There are other universities involved, and even as far as out west involved in that project. I think Katie could probably give you a better description of what's going on there, but we'll let her decide to do that later if she wants. And the other thing I read just this week is that it was in the University of Windsor news. There's a graduate student there who's involved in a study about the sand at Pelee Island, because it appears that there are microbes living in that sand that can eat the microsystems that are left behind by blue-green algae and that are really the danger, other than they're the medical danger rather than just the environmental one of the lake smelling. And they're looking at a microbe, much like microbes that are in a septic system, I guess, that will actually disable the microsystems. So they're trying to examine that to see if there is a protection process that could could be put in place using biology, basically. And so that's kind of neat. I'd like to see what goes on there. And with that, I welcome you all to our meeting. Olga, I'll try not to forget you this month. So is there any disclosure of conflict of interest? And seeing none, the agenda was pre-circulated that we're going to work from this week. Motion to receive the agenda or approve the agenda. Tim and Albert? All in favor? Opposed, carried. The next thing are minutes from our meeting of February 10th. Again, those were pre-circulated. They've been vetted. We thank Olga for her comments and changes that she suggested. And does anybody have any motions on the minutes? Yay, nay? Tom Hunt and John Barnett. Any discussion, addition, deletion, correction? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. No correspondence. I guess that's okay. No SBA information. They haven't met since our last meeting. So we're down to Olga. Would you like to give us an update, Olga, if you can?
Thank you, Chair Firth. Actually, this one would have been a good time to forget about me because I don't really have an update to provide to what I mentioned at the February 10th meeting. I think I talked a little bit about the director technical rules, about the guidance maybe for private systems, about the CA Act, and I don't have any new information on those items. So unless there are any questions, specific questions for me on anything. Oh, Chair Firth, I think you're on mute.
Again with the mute. Okay. I say, I guess I can't win with you for some reason. I can figure this out.
We'll get it right next time.
Anybody have any questions for Olga? Check. No? Okay, thank you very much. And I hope we can keep you up, Olga. Keep you awake. No presentations. So I think we're at Laura's report. Am I right? Update on risk management services?
You are correct. And then it's gonna be me trying to mess around here and get the slideshow working properly again. So I'm gonna present Laura's report for her. She is here to answer any questions. Let me just hide the presenter view. Is that? Oh, for crying out loud.
The jinx is alive and well.
Yeah, right? Huh. Ugh, that's not what I wanted to do.
You're sharing.
I know, but not what I wanted to share.
Okay.
Now, where did you guys go? Close that. There you are. Well, you know what? We're just going to have to look at it. What are you seeing? My home screen or my slideshow?
I'm seeing slideshow with the slide on the left side.
Okay. That just may be as good as it gets today. Unless I can do... There, are you seeing it now?
Yes.
Yes, I did it. Okay, fabulous. Okay, so we should be pretty quick through a lot of this information today. You saw an update from Laura in October, And as her job as the risk management official, she's delegated as the risk management official for all of our lower tier municipalities in the city of Windsor, as well as Chatham-Kent, to implement our Part 4 policies on their behalf. So I did have her give you a pretty good detailed update in October. And then what we do, this is the time of year when we do our annual progress report that is required by the Ministry of Environment. But we also do a much more in-depth report for the municipalities for risk management. So that's what this report is put before you as the SPC today, is to receive the report that we've written that will be sent out to municipalities. So just a couple of highlights. We have established a total of 89 risk management plans for existing drinking water threats. Laura established a whopping 40 risk management plans for existing threats last year. This is massive. We're at a 91% of all of the existing threats now have been addressed through risk management plans. And we have nine sites outstanding. And we know what we need to know about those 9 sites. 2 of them are oil pumping stations, and 7 of them are cannabis operations. And we've talked to you about both of those things before. With the oil pumping stations, Laura is working with, I believe it's MNRF, to get the information that we need for those. And it'll be, we should just be able to easily write a risk management plan. So we expect those to be handled by the fall of this year. And the cannabis operations, we've gone through a couple of different phases with it and trying to figure out how to address these. Laura's gone on site. There's a change in ownership. There's a language barrier. There's a lack of oversight at these sites. So she's not able to figure out who's in charge when she goes to these places. Oftentimes, whoever happens to be on site will run and hide so that they don't need to speak to her. So it's been very challenging for her to get any information actually on site, and the sites have barbed wire around them as well. So we've worked with the municipalities. These are in Kingsville and Leamington, to try to get contact information that way. We still have sort of hit some roadblocks. So our last action was that we wrote a letter, which we included as correspondence in the last SPC meeting, and it's attached again to this report. And that letter to the Ministry of Environment just really laid out everything that Laura has come across as being a challenge to getting the risk management plans established at these sites. And the reason we wanted to write that letter was to have something formal that says this is the reason that they weren't established by the date they were supposed to be established by. And also because these sites have a lot of other issues that are well beyond what we are capable of dealing with. We're dealing with illegal cannabis operations. Some of these we know have had legal issues. We know there's been raids on some of the properties. We know some of the landowners have fled the country. So this is something much larger than ourselves, right? So we wanted to sort of bring it up formally. So we had a great conversation. Erin was her name. Yes, Erin, who I've never dealt with directly before, but she, I thought Laura and I knew the Clean Water Act, and Erin knows the Clean Water Act so well. So she really helped us to see a couple of other avenues of options. So we are making progress on some of them. I'll give you, this is just a quick update. Laura has managed to establish 1 risk management plan already since the beginning of March. She's got 1 in progress. That's a property that is no longer cannabis and is now will be a vegetable greenhouse. So she's in contact with the people there. She's made contact with 1 person, but is now sort of playing phone tag with them. So hopefully that'll be a third that works out. And then the remaining properties, we have some contact information. She's going to try once more to go on site. And then we have a plan in place where we will write a letter stating that we'll be establishing a risk management plan by order if we haven't heard from them in these 120 days. And if we don't, then we establish a risk management plan by order, which we have not had to do yet. But in speaking with Erin, it made it sound, it's it sounds like a very good option, right? Where it covers us, it covers off the liability of the municipality to say, there's a risk management plan in place. We have done our due diligence. It's now in the hands of the landowner to implement this risk management plan. So we have a plan in place, and we expect that all of the remaining existing threats will be handled by mid 2021. In terms of future threats, we still continue to receive those Section 59 applications. And you can see that Laura's been reviewing a whole bunch still in 2020 and established, established an additional 2 risk management plans this year through Section 59. So we are still getting some of those new builds and doing what we need to do to get those new builds moving and not being held up by risk management plans. So this summarizes it by municipality. So you can see how we're doing across the board. And I think we're doing very, very well. We know exactly where our problems are, and we know how to address them going forward. And just to draw your attention to the fact that we have in total, with future threats and existing threats, we've established 97 risk management plans in the Essex region. I think that's really awesome. And we have 9 outstanding, and we know how to deal with them. So that's what's going on with our fuel threats anyway. And then we do have some other Part 4 policies, and we've reached out to the municipalities of Lakeshore, Windsor, and Amherstburg, and we're continuing to work with them to try to figure out, are those prohibited activities permissible under the official plan? And Tom, I saw your email, and you know, it's there and sort of lies the rub, right? That we have what's a permissible land use, but does that mean that the activity is also not allowed? So we have a bit of homework to do with some of these other Part 4 policies, but again, we have a plan in place in order to knock these policies out as well. And we would be remiss if we didn't bring up COVID-19. I'm very happy to have management at IRCA being mindful and respectful of the staff here. We all started working home literally just about a year ago. We had our SPC meeting on March 11th last year, and it was the following Monday that they sent us all home. So we've been working at home almost a year. And on a personal note, it's my birthday soon, so I will be the first person I know to have 2 COVID birthdays. And, you know, we did go back to the office for a little bit in the summertime, but we've all been working at home again since December. It required changes to our policies and how we do things, but I'm happy to say that we really don't have any major delays as a result of COVID-19. And Laura's done a really awesome job of switching up how she communicates, so she's able to do a lot of her communication by phone and by email. So we're trucking along. In terms of our next steps, so we'll continue completing those remaining existing risk management plans, conducting field and desktop surveys in those Windsor, Lakeshore, Amherstburg IPZ1 and Windsor IPZ2 for the other existing significant threats. Our municipalities have asked us to do another round of training for Section 59, so we'll do that virtually, and reviewing our Section 59 applications as they come in, working on those standalone pumping stations. And then this year we are going to be getting into our compliance and monitoring inspections, which we haven't done yet. So that'll be an exciting change for us as well. And then again, continuing those field surveys and building up that inventory of where all of the fuel threats are. So that is a summary of our Part 4 update that will go out to municipalities on May 1st. I guess one question I would like you to think about, and I would welcome your feedback, is whether that the letter that we wrote, the cannabis letter, whether it should be included as an attachment for municipalities, or if it's, you know, it really is just dealing with Kingsville and Leamington, and they're aware of it. So something to think about. We have some time to decide whether we want to include it or not. Yeah, so that is the gist of that report.
Questions, anybody? I think there might be some. Nelson?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair, to Katie, on that last part about the notices information about the cannabis. I know it reflects Kingsville, Leamington, but there are other locations of Part 2 cannabis operations that are within like municipalities of Essex and even Lakeshore that we're aware of, and I'm hearing they're actually probably more prevalent throughout the county as well. So it might be worthwhile at least to give the information to municipalities, so at least they're alerted to it, and then they can kind of put their spotlight on when they hear of either Part 2 growers in their area or any future applications as well.
Thanks, Nelson.
Anybody else? Okay, Ron?
Yeah, just going back on the fuel threat, just a suggestion. Could we have the bylaw officers of the municipalities that you're having a problem with getting responses? Because the bylaw officers have a different toolbox, and they may be able to get around some things that you can't. Maybe
So-
go in as a team.
Yeah, so as risk management officials, we do have the option to bring somebody with us to do risk management work, and that can be a bylaw officer or an actual police officer or anything of the sort. So we have a couple of steps that we can enact before we go that route, and we're trying to do this in the least disruptive way possible because it's just so much bigger than us.
Good.
Yeah, but no, good idea.
Got to use the Hells Angels to go with you, Katie.
Yeah.
We're not in Illinois. We don't do that here. Yeah, I have 2 or 3 questions about the long range. What happens with that? Probably not the time to talk about them. Things like who actually enforces the order? Do we have to buy Laura a weapon, or and then given that, what are the penalties if they don't comply? Other than and who does that? Sort of you say there's a few steps. Well, there's a few steps. They have some good questions too. And then if there's legal processes that we get into, who pays for it? So there's some things that we don't know about that yet.
Yeah, for sure. And I will lean heavily on the ministry on that. So do we need to give Laura a weapon? No, we don't. She's not that kind of officer. It's all done by paper. So you mail the, and I'm going to mess up the language, but you mail the notice of the order, and within 5 business days, you consider that piece of mail received. And so they've received the order that says that they must establish a risk management plan within 120 days. If they have not done so, Laura establishes the risk management plan it's no longer a negotiation. It's no longer 2 parties agreeing to a risk management plan. It's Laura saying, here's your risk management plan. And then that is delivered by mail, and it's considered implemented and enforced. And at that time, if the landowner is not in compliance with what Laura has established as a risk management plan, there will be a compliance factor to it, which we haven't even really had to dive into compliance yet. But did I hit that all right, Olga?
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of penalties, I was just actually, Chair Firth, as you were saying that, I was looking up the Clean Water Act to see because it's the penalty if you're in contravention of those orders is very clearly spelled out. And I think as long as I'm reading the right section under Part 4, I think it's something like an individual who's guilty of an offense in the case of a first conviction of a fine of no more than $25,000 for each day, so-and-so, subsequent convictions to a fine of no more than $50,000, et cetera. So that the Clean Water Act does contemplate all of the steps of, what authorities the risk management official has to fully enforce that order, including, their powers if in case of contravention. So you'd have to prosecute.
Okay, then the next question would be, is the risk management official, like we have an agreement with the municipalities
Correct.
to do this stuff?
Yes,
Are they acting as an agent of the municipality?
that is correct. So
Then get involved?
the agreement that we have with the municipalities has a section that lays out this eventuality. So the agreement covers all of the basic stuff that a risk management official might do. And then if we need to go into a situation where we're bringing in a third party legal, anything like that, we must consult with the municipality. And then it must be a third party of their choosing and anything of that sort of thing. So our Shannon Bello is our contact at Leamington, and Andrew Planky is our contact at Kingsville. So we've been in communication with them throughout this whole process. So they're, at this point, we're not above and beyond anything, but we've maintained that communication with them so that they know that there's a potential for that eventuality.
Yeah, I'm just asking in terms of general knowledge about how it might go. I'm not saying how it will go, and it is a legal matter, and at some point we would talk about going in camera to talk about this, but since we're not identifying anything here, we're simply investigating the process. That's sort of what I was trying to convey to the committee.
Okay.
Matthew.
Sorry, Olga, did you?
If I may, Mr. Chair, just to add one additional comment, and I think that's, Katie, to your point before, absolutely, we're here, and as Katie was mentioning, Aaron Harkins is a sort of our in-house Part 4 expert, and was really invaluable in that conversation to just walk through what the options are, right? Just sort of a comprehensive look at what the risk management official and inspector has in their tool belt, should the situation go one of whichever many ways. So of course, an excellent idea to consult legal counsel at the municipality or the CA or both, but of course as the municipal official, especially with the municipality, and we'll be here to support, if you have any questions about implementing those provisions under Part 4, we'll support you with that. But just important to consider all of those factors, right? About, what options are available to you, what liabilities does the municipality have in the case, that you may or may not take certain actions to address the risks that are significant under the Clean Water Act, et cetera. So.
And Matthew had a question.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Chair Firth, and Katie and Laura. I think one of the points that I've been thinking about coming from industry, and especially providing the oil, gas, the diesel to these locations, without, I guess, necessarily handcuffing ourselves as a business. I can say the first priority when we go to do a delivery is we ensure that the area is safe. The equipment that we're delivering to is safe and in good working order and able to receive the product. And we rely on our customers to make sure that they are following all procedures and regulations that they have to follow. And that being said, if it's a matter of public record, if I were to know that a facility does not have a plan in place, and they're supposed to have a plan in place, then that's something that we talk about liability. There's certainly, I would be taking on some of that liability if I know that they don't have everything in place. So I may not, I would have to choose to not deliver to that location. So, I say that in not necessarily saying that we want to go around and not deliver to our customers, but if it's not safe and if they don't have everything in place that they need, I think that's something that it behooves industry to participate and do our part to make sure that we're following along. If that's something that can be made public to the various fueling companies and said, hey, this location does not have something in place. They're not in good standing. They can't receive material. So we can solve that problem from the supply end.
Okay, that's helpful to know. And the tanks in question are all empty at this point in time, right? And there's no intention to use them again. And we have several situations like that. But yeah, Laura, maybe we can connect with Matthew another time, and it may be helpful to know if we're able, because risk management plans are a matter of public record. So it may be helpful for you guys to even know which of our risk management plans exist for empty tanks. And that because the provision of those risk management plans is that the tank not be filled unless the risk management plan is renegotiated.
Yep.
So it, yeah, so that may be an interesting avenue to explore. So thank you for bringing that up.
Absolutely.
And anybody else? Don't see any. And Bill? Oh, you're talking to somebody in the room. Okay. Looks like that's it. So Katie, next.
Oh, sorry, we need to
Motion to receive, sorry, yep. Ian and Jim Drummond. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right.
Okay, now I get to
Yep.
now I get to goof around with sharing my screen again. So I feel like it was a bit of a miracle that I did it the first time. So there, I did it. Right, you can see my presentation. Perfect. I've figured it out. Okay, so now we get into the annual progress report, which is the big thing left for the SPC to do. This is where you guys get to have your opinion on how well you think we're doing at implementing the Essex Region Forest Protection Plan. So the way that this works is that we have an annual progress report required by May 1st every year to the Ministry of Environment. We collect that data from our implementing bodies. They're required to give us their implementation data by February 1st of each year. We collate that information to populate the annual progress report, and then we bring it to you around this time of year because you as the SPC I'm required to give you 30 days to review the progress report, and then it goes to the SPA for endorsement, and then we submit it to the Ministry of Environment. So what you are seeing today is a draft, and I very much encourage you to read it over, provide me with any comment or feedback. You do have lots of time to do that. So you have a minimum of 30 days to do that. And you'll receive this by email so that you can comment on it. When we have these progress reports, we talk about cumulative actions, but we highlight what happened in the previous year. So in this case, it's 2020. And I messed this up. It's not our third. This is our fourth annual progress report this year. So it's always, it hasn't changed from the last couple of years. So we have these specific sections that we consider every year in this public facing document. We have not filled out the septic inspections, and we haven't talked about any summary of delays in the past. And these are the sections that require you to give a score. And that score is P, progressing well, S, satisfactory, and L, limited progress. And again, these are the items that you're giving that score to. So I will come back to these scores at the end of each of the sections that require a score. So I'm just going to take you through what's in that public facing document. It's attached to your report there that you can read over. Part one, we haven't changed. It's just a basic introduction that we wrote up a few years ago, and we haven't changed it. Part two, this is the message from the SPC. And typically Tom writes this section, Chair Firth writes this section. So he will be reaching out to you guys for ideas about what you may want to see included in there. I left the 2019 text in there for inspiration. So if you've got any ideas, this is sort of your opportunity to bring forward any of those ideas that you'd like to see captured there. And this is also where the SPC gives the overall score for how we're doing with the implementation of the source protection plan. And you can see there in 2018, 2019, we gave it a score of P, progressing well. And our watershed, we also have a change. That's just basic text about describing the Essex region. So the first thing that we look at is our implementation progress. We look at our the number of policies that are implemented. And we've been giving this a score of P for progressing well in previous years. And we have seen an increase in the percentage of fully implemented policies every year. So we went from 54% to 57 to 61. And you can see the breakdown here from our significant threat policies, low, moderate, and other policies. So this year we moved one of the low, moderate policies to implemented. This is our education policy. So source water protection is sort of embedded in all the different types of education and outreach that the Conservation Authority does. We participate in social media campaigns, that sort of thing. And we moved two of these significant threat policies from in progress to implemented. One of them is the fuel inventory. So we have that ArcGIS collector that Laura populates, so that's there. And then the other one is a policy that requires me annually to remind Lakeshore not to graze their cattle in the IPZ1. So every year I send Albert an email around this time of year that says, please don't graze cattle in Lakeshore IPZ1. So that policy is also implemented. If we break down the policies that are in progress still, so there are 15 policies that are considered in progress. And largely this is because of how we interpret the meaning of that for our Part 4 policies. So we call our existing threat policies, our Section 57 and 58 policies, in progress until we know for certain that every single one of the existing threats has been addressed. So we've talked about the fuel policy. We know that one will be taken care of this year. There are 6 Section 57 prohibit policies that affect Windsor, Amherstburg, and Lakeshore IPZ1. So we're going to work with Antonetta and Albert and Tom and say, are these things even permissible activities? Really, break it down and, recognizing that official plans talk about land use and not necessarily activity, but we're talking like 5,000 tons storage of salt. So like things that you can't hide somewhere, right? So how do we really start to knock these out? So I think we can pretty easily knock out these prohibit policies and move them into implementation. And then we have some additional risk management plan policies that I'm hoping will be similar as well. Windsor IPZ2 may give us a bit more of a challenge because it's a broader area where we might have to look for some of these potential existing significant drinking water threats. So that makes up 12 of the 15 policies that we say are in progress. There are 2 policies that are directed to the City of Windsor that are related to combined sewer overflows. And the policies, the way that they were written in the source protection plan, Stan Taylor wrote them, in consultation, I believe, with the City of Windsor at the time. It was, having a combined sewer master plan established by 2016, and that's all dependent on funding. And so this project is still in process. So it may be a good idea to sit down with the City of Windsor and, do these policies still make sense the way that they're written, or should we, can we change them, or is there something that we can do to help sort of move that target a bit forward? And then the last policy will requires Windsor, Amherstburg, and Lakeshore to prohibit sewage treatment tanks in the IPZ1s, which I believe will happen in Amherstburg's next official plan and has already happened in Windsor and Lakeshore. So that gives you a bit of a more in-depth look at the policies that we're still working on for significant drinking water threats. So this is a point of discussion. So whether we want to give it a score of P progressing well, which we have in the past, satisfactory or limited progress. And I know this is it's always a bit weird when we have these annual progress meetings, but I'll open it up if anyone has any strong feelings about the score that it should be given here. Is anybody?
I think since we haven't had the farmers marching on us or anything like that, we've probably been doing a really good job.
I feel like that's good. I guess I'll ask if anybody is strongly opposed to continuing to giving this a score of P progressing well.
I think I saw Ron's hand up there for a sec.
I just wanted to second that. Let's give it a P.
Okay. Albert?
John? Sorry.
Yeah, just a brief comment. I've been here for over 2 years. I think I might have seen livestock that wasn't wild game. There's more solar farms going on here and everything else than farming. Just a general comment.
Okay. Anybody else? I guess we're good.
Okay, great. So then moving into municipal progress. So again, we've been giving a score of P progressing well for our municipalities. And this is based on progress in official plan conformity and zoning bylaw conformity. And so we know that all of our municipalities have delegated their Part 4 responsibilities. So there's risk management services. So they're doing those policies. They've got their plans in place for Section 59 policies, and they're working on official plans and zoning bylaw updates. Now, what I will say is that this chart has not changed. I think we added one municipality to a completed last year, but it hasn't really changed since 2018. So most of our municipalities are in progress with their official plans. Some of them I've reviewed, and I think they're a little bit closer than others, but others I think are nowhere near close. I don't know if any of our municipal reps want to jump in there. So again, we have a point of discussion. Do we continue to say our municipalities are progressing well? Move them to satisfactory? Is Albert?
Yeah, I believe last night at council, our official plan got approved.
Oh, fantastic. Lake Shores is the one that I have reviewed.
Okay.
That's awesome.
So now you got to rewrite the whole plan?
Yeah. Chris?
So just the two that aren't started, I guess, why haven't they been at least started? I mean, if we've been sitting on that for 2 years.
So the zoning bylaw conformity doesn't really get going until the official plan is done, if I understand the process correctly. So you have to have your official plan done before you start your zoning bylaw conformity. And so they're working on the official plan, and then they'll do the zoning bylaw. Does anyone have any strong feelings about what we score this?
Do you have a recommendation, Katie?
Normally I recommend P progressing well. And it feels weird to downgrade, but we also haven't seen a lot of movement on it. So do we sort of take the opportunity to give a little push and say, we know official plans need to be brought up, and so we give a satisfactory score? I don't think that'll change our overall score of how we think we're doing in general with implementation. So I would waver between those two, and I would leave it to the committee to make that decision. And Mayor Santos has his hand up.
Nelson.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think the challenge of the pandemic has been, as we're doing official plan updates, having the public process has really, stretched out the timelines. Our municipality started our OP review 2.5 years ago, and we officially just adopted it at the tail end of last year for the updates with all the changes. So I feel for the other 4 that I know are in the midst of the 5-year review of their OP and are finding, having to push timelines a little bit to meet that public input, piece. So I know they are working on it. It did take us a little bit longer in our municipality, and we'll probably have another update in a year in terms of any other policies. But we've, it does take additional time, through this pandemic, from having an open house with guests to having Zoom meetings, trying to draw interest from the public is definitely much more challenging.
That's true. So we could perhaps leave it at the same score, but maybe make just a comment that we recognize that municipalities are delayed as a result of COVID-19 and the inability to have in-person consultation. And that's good to know, Nelson, because actually Kingsville wasn't showing up as for us having a completed OP. So I should follow up with you on that. Andrew Planky fills that out for us, and he would have left it in there as in progress.
Okay, yeah, so I can connect you with Mr. Planky or with our planner, Mr. Brown, who's provided the additional pieces of our OP update. That included a lot of language from the Conservation Authority and the Ministry. Yeah.
Okay, so Kingsville's OP was adopted at the end of 2020?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
I don't know if we need to mention the COVID specifically in here. I was going to have something on that in the overall comments, the SBA comments.
Okay.
SPC comments. So.
Okay.
I don't know. We'll see how it looks.
Yeah, for sure.
But I tend to agree that I hear Nelson saying it. P is probably a good score for this because some of the non-progress is COVID related. I was thinking about public meetings, the number of public meetings you have to have and so on.
Mm-hmm. Tom has his hand up. Tom Hunt.
So I would agree with Nelson. The other aspect of it is that the Ministry, Municipal Affairs and Housing has been challenged as well with COVID in terms of getting us comments back on a number of OPAs. And so it's not just the municipality that needs to go through that process. It's also contingent and dependent on the ministry staff. And we've been involved in ongoing dialogue about the status of some of our policies, not just related to SPC, but other aspects that have been very delayed from that standpoint. So even, with the best of intentions on the municipal side, you're still dependent on other bodies.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. MAH has had a lot going on. So then, yeah. Okay, I'm comfortable with that, and that helps Nelson because that'll actually bump us up, so we'll be able to show that there has been some change from previous years. So thank you for that information. So if everybody's comfortable, we'll leave that at a P. And then we've just heard in more in-depth, and you've got that more in-depth review from the Part 4 policies. First of all, the septic inspections, we have no policies for septic inspections. So we just have a statement that we put in there every single year that says, even though we don't have policies, we still encourage proper maintenance of septic systems. So we'll maintain that statement in there. Our risk management plans, we've said progressing well throughout. You see that summary there, and we've just heard a little bit more detail about it. And as I said, we're at 91% of our existing threats addressed. So I'm pretty happy myself with that. So again, we have that opportunity of scoring P, S, or L. If there's no objection, we can leave this one at P as well. Okay. Provincial progress. So this one's, it's funny, but like I almost wish there was something better than progressing well, because the provincial policies are fully implemented and there's nothing better for them to do. So they're not progressing well, they're done. They have, they've got their screening process in place. So when they get a new application, they screen it. Is it in a vulnerable area? Are there policies that apply? What do we need to consider? So and they've improved their reporting every year. The reporting that we receive back from the provincial ministries is easier and easier for us to interpret, which is so helpful, and definitely have relayed that to ministry staff before. And Olga, if you can as well highlight that it's really been a good change. So in our area, they examined 8 applications, 1 for handling and storage of fuel, 7 for wastewater sewage works. So they reviewed those applications. They determined that the activities didn't meet the circumstances to be a significant drinking water threat. And so they were able to issue the prescribed instruments. So there are no new threats as per provincial policy. So I see no reason not to say this is progressing well. The change in behavior, this one is, and I'm wondering, as I was sort of reading it over, and Olga, maybe something for us to chat about going forward, that this has typically been a focus on the road signage. And at this point, municipalities and the province are pretty much done installing their road signs. So we have, no new road signs at this point. We have more than 60 in the region. So, what else might this section be about if it's not about road signs? But for now, that's what it's about. So this is the information that will be included in there. I will say Conservation Ontario has a communications subgroup for source water. And in that subgroup, there's also a subgroup just about the road signs. So they're working on some communication pieces strictly about the road signs and what do they mean and that sort of thing. I tried to take like a selfie video in front of one of the road signs at the Detroit River, but it was a little bit too windy, so it didn't work out too well. But yeah, so that language will be pretty similar to what we saw last year. The monitoring results, again, I left the text in from last year just as an example. I need to write this section. It'll be similar and based on the information that you received at the last SPC meeting, just an update on our phosphorus monitoring and harmful algal blooms. And then the last thing that we have in the report is the more from the watershed. And this is a place where the SPC sort of gives us some ideas about what you want us to expand on or elaborate on. So in 2017, we highlighted integration of source water into the day-to-day practices of the Conservation Authority. 2018, we included information about our road signs across the region. And in 2019, we had some success stories from risk management services, some great photos that Laura had of old rusted tanks having been painted. So those are some ideas of what we've talked about before, but I would look to you guys for some inspiration if there's anything in particular you would like for us to highlight in this section. Anyone have any ideas? And don't all speak at once. And you can kind of contemplate this too, right? We've got some time to go over it. So, by all means, you can shoot me an email if something comes to you later that you think, you know what, this is a really cool thing that happened in source water that I think we should talk about. And we'll give it some thought as well. So there's a bit of time to come up with that content. And this is not prescribed content, so we have some leeway with what we want to talk about here.
Katie, I don't know if this is a good time to bring this up, but since we can't gather and talk off camera like we used to when we were at IRCA, has anybody done any research on the blue-green algae for what its NP and K content is?
The NPK content of the algae itself?
Yes. We all know that phosphorus causes it, but does it actually contain that so that we could actually retrieve it out of the water and bring it to soil?
Yeah, you can harvest algae for other things. Like there are some people doing research on like what can you use the algae for. I don't know that using it for fertilizer is one of those things. I'm not sure, but yeah, there's definitely that out there. There's always the problem with anything like that when you're dealing with a wicked problem in the environment is that if you find a way to make it useful, does it make you stop trying to fix the problem? Or if you've then created an industry that's dependent on something that's a problem, what happens to that industry when you fix the problem? So there's a few different schools of thought on whether same thing of like, do you create fishing derbies for Asian carp and give out recipes for how to cook up Asian carp and and somehow make it okay that we have this invasive species, right? Yeah, but no, I don't know the answer to that, John, but I know there are people that are looking at, how do we harvest it? And if we harvested it, what would we use it for?
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks, Katie.
Yeah, no problem, John. Okay, so I'll leave you to think about more from the watershed. We'll think about it as well, Laura and I, and maybe we'll talk about how our team has grown and now has, Sam and Lisa and all the different sort of aspects of the work that we do, and make it a little bit personal and how source water is delivered at the Essex region. So we have a.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chris. Sorry, I was just trying to figure out whose box.
I don't know if it's related at all, but I was talking with somebody and they were talking about stuff that was implemented at the Windsor salt mine to reduce runoff.
Okay.
I don't know how that, I never hear the salt mine being mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
I know we talk about salt and the presentation we had last meeting about salt, but the mine itself and their storage hasn't been mentioned really. But I do know they've implemented some plans, but I don't know what governing body would dictate why they implemented those plans and mitigation strategies.
I would hazard a guess that would be through an environmental compliance approval with the Ministry of Environment, because they would have to show that they're not having a deleterious impact on the surrounding environment. So it's not a source water problem because the Windsor salt mine is not within a vulnerable area of any of our intakes. So there's no source water policies, but it as an industry is already managed through legislation and would require an environmental compliance approval for that.
Okay, I figured that, but like I say, I do know that I've heard that they've implemented some major things to mitigate runoff from their piles just recently. So
that's great. That's always good news. And it's, as I always say, it's hard for me with my two hats, right? To sort of tease out like this is an environment problem, but it's not a source water problem, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Chris. So I'll allow you can still ask questions and stuff, but before I stop sharing the resolution, so how we do the resolution for the annual progress report is that you guys tell me now that it's okay for me to submit it pending any additions and endorsement by the SPA. And that just all has to do with the timing of when our meetings happen. So the way that it's worded is the way that we've worded it in previous years. So it just gives us the opportunity to submit it later, but you still have time to review it and provide comment. So I will stop sharing so that we can actually see everybody.
Okay, the suggested motion talks about going to MECP on May 1st, but the SPA has to have it for a period of time.
No, the SPA doesn't. The SPA does not have it for a period of time. The SPC has it for a period of time.
So the SPA needs to look it over and
they need to look it over. So they will get it. So it says pending SPA endorsement in the resolution, and the SPA will get it at their meeting in April. So their meeting will be April 8th.
Yeah, so that's a date by which it's got to be finished, really.
Yeah. But even that, the resolution that they get still has a provision that it pending any amendments by the SPC. And they have an opportunity to provide amendments as well.
Not amendments, comments, I think.
Comments. Mhm.
Okay, so between now and April 4th would be a period of time to get our work done if we could.
Yep.
So if people have a suggestion about changing something or improving something, it should come before about April 4th. So if we pass this recommendation, you'll be on your honor to get your stuff in by that date, to make it fair for Katie and Lisa and whoever else, Laura, whoever else is working on it, to be able to get it to the SBA. It would be a walk-on if we go April 4th. I don't see anybody nodding their head. Oh, there, Nelson. I see Nelson nodding. John Barnett, Ron, that makes sense?
Is that Easter weekend, Tom?
I have no idea.
Don't worry, I'll give you a date. It's fine.
I'm in COVID. I have no idea.
They're all the same. Yeah.
Yeah, April 4th is a Sunday. You would need to have your comments to me by well, it does. If you want me to make any changes before the SPA gets it, it should be to me by March 31st. You just have to trust me that there is still an opportunity to fix it after that too.
Thank you.
Oh, well, best laid plans. All right. So end of March, get your stuff to Katie before the end of March. She's available by phone as well.
Yep.
If you don't feel like writing anything out and you have something you want to bounce off her, or me, you can talk to me too.
And make sure you give Tom some ideas for your letter from the SPC.
So some of what I would say on your behalf, I think, just to give you an idea, and you give me some more ideas if you have any. We're going to have some reference about this being the age of COVID. I was going to talk about we've run into some uncooperative owners, which is a new thing for us. And the municipal compliance is great. A little longer, again, because of COVID and their processes, but it's coming.
And I would say, actually, I don't know if you want to talk about this, but although this has been, different and challenging going to a virtual format, we have had nearly 100% participation since we've gone to a virtual format. So we meet quorum every time, and we have almost full participation. And the folks that aren't here are not here because they cannot be here today, but otherwise they would be. So that seems to be a bit of a positive thing, right? That you're able to log in from wherever you are.
Yeah, positive for climate change, low carbon footprint too, Katie?
Yeah, for sure. I know it. Like, I tweeted at the beginning of all of a year ago, I put out this tweet of if I was a climate scientist, I would be deploying every monitoring thing I had at my disposal. There's got to be some pretty interesting.
Well, they say you can actually see the cities in China now, so. from the sky.
Yeah.
Okay, somebody want to make the motion in those terms? Albert and Tim, any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, that's good. This is
Oh, you muted yourself.
it's the biggest thing that Katie and her group have to do during the whole year. Get
That's
this
right.
report ready.
Well, it's nice. I think we've got it down to a good system. So Sam Dundas, who's present here today, she's taken over from Laura, but Laura left a great instruction manual on how to do it. And so I think it was overwhelming when we first started doing it, but it gets a little bit easier every year to just sort of update the numbers. So it's not
And the procedures that the province has given have improved as well.
absolutely.
Made it easier and better to do. So
Yep.
thank you, Ova.
Yeah.
Thank the province for that. Okay. The next meeting is tentatively scheduled for October 13th.
Yep. Tom, I'll just speak briefly to the 2 points you brought up about the University of Windsor.
Oh, yeah.
So the paper that Tom was talking about on Peely Island, that is a grad student named Chelsea Salter. If it's of interest to this group, I can have her come and give a presentation. It's really, I haven't been involved directly in the research for a while, but it's this really amazing situation where Peely Island takes their water out of Lake Erie, and the concentration of toxin, of the microcystin toxin in Lake Erie is crazy, crazy high. And then it goes into their water treatment plant, and they take another sample in the water treatment plant. And the only thing that's happened is that it's passed through the sand, and that's it. It hasn't had any other treatment. And by the time it reaches that point in the plant, the microcystin is gone. And it's unheard of in other places for that to happen. Normally you would have to have all of these treatment things in place to get rid of the microcystin. So Kyle Davis and myself sort of, raised it as, hey, this is crazy. This is super interesting. So some researchers at the University of Windsor got involved and have actually examined the sand and tried to figure out what is it about this sand that is breaking down the toxin. And I believe what they've got it down to is that it's a microfilm, so little microorganisms that are actually preferentially eating up the toxin, which is pretty cool. It's pretty cool that this is just nature's solution to this problem. So if it's of interest to this group, I can have Chelsea come in and give a presentation about her work. Yeah.
In the meantime, I'll pull up, if I can find it again, the University Daily News where the article is written, and it goes into that kind of explanation. It's also filtering the water for the private wells in the island. So
that may be.
And what they say in that article is that they're trying to identify the particular kind of organism of the many that there are in that water.
Yeah.
The particular kind that's actually achieving this. So.
Yeah, it's pretty cool work that they're doing. So that's what I know about that one. I know a little bit less about the other project you were talking about, but yeah.
Yeah, that was an article. That was an article in the Star, I think. Oh no, again, it was in the Daily News.
Yeah. Okay.
Daily News. I'll try and find them both, and I'll pass them around to everybody.
Sounds good.
And if Ms. Sadler would like to come, that would be good.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sure she would enjoy the opportunity to speak.
Okay, anybody got anything else for the meeting? So Tim, it's your turn.
Better unmute myself to make a motion to adjourn, Mr.
There you go. And I saw Chris with a hand up too, so he can second it. Okay, all in favor? And thank you very much for your attention tonight. It's great.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Stay safe.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Care.
Bye.